Happy Irish Heritage Month. Here to share with you a little bit about Irish history, Irish culture, and what to look for if you're ever lucky enough to visit Ireland one day. Starting with early Irish history, at a time when most of Europe was conquered by the Roman Empire, including England, the neighboring island. Ireland was never Romanized. It was never conquered by the Romans. And in fact, that is a big reason why, after the Roman Empire fell, Ireland maintained such a distinct culture and was able to preserve a lot of Greco Roman culture while the rest of Europe kind of descended into the Dark Ages. But their system of high kings, Celtic high kings, is what governed the island before the arrival of Christianity, which of course came with St. Patrick. Now, we all know about St. Patrick's Day, but not enough of us know about who St. Patrick was. He was an incredible person. He was alive in the 400s, and as a teenager, he was enslaved by Irish pirates. He actually wasn't born in Ireland. He was born in this area of Britain right here called Wales. And he was captured by Irish pirates off the coast of Wales and taken to northeastern Ireland, where he worked as a shepherd for 6 years. And during that time, had a lot of time to think and pray. And at one point, according to his autobiography, he received a vision from God that told him there was a boat on the coastline, told him where it was, and told him to escape, which he did. So he escaped his life of slavery. He was able to go back to freedom, and during that time, in his adulthood, he became a priest, later became a bishop of the church, and decided to become a missionary. And he was sent to Ireland to become the Bishop of Ireland, since he knew it well, and he had the kind of forgiving heart to go back to the people who had formerly enslaved him and spread the gospel to them. So, a really inspiring tale of forgiveness and selflessness, and understanding that it wasn't all about him. He was able to convert the kings and the chieftains to Christianity first, and from then the masses kind of followed the kings and chieftains when he converted them to Christianity. He was able to explain Christianity to them by using images that were familiar to them. Things like the warrior image. It was a very wild, very violent society before Christianity came there. And the Celtic people understood the images of warriors and battles and enemies. And so he explained that Christ is the true warrior king that we should all swear an oath of allegiance to and be loyal to, in the same way that we're loyal to our kings and chieftains and going into battle. And he described the devil as the enemy that our warrior king, Christ, defeated. One thing that gave him a lot of credibility to the Irish was the fact that he wasn't asking them for anything. In fact, any money he made, he would give away. He shunned money. He wasn't interested in riches or glory or fame. And so the Irish were kind of like, well, if he isn't telling the truth, then what would be his motive for coming over here? He's not asking for money or power. And so they really listened to what he had to say. And Christianity really caught on very quickly throughout Ireland. He was very successful at spreading the gospel there. And he then built a series of monasteries that became a bedrock for the church in Ireland, and really still is today. Now, Ireland is famous for its lush fields of clover, specifically the shamrock. There's the three-leaf clover and the four-leaf clover. Now, the four-leaf clover is often seen as the image of luck, but the three-leaf clover, which is much more common, was used by St. Patrick in order to explain the Trinity. He explained how there was one God in three persons, in the same way that a shamrock is one flower or one plant with three distinct flowers or leaves on it, just like the Trinity. There's also the legend that he drove the snakes out of Ireland. Now, it is a fact that there are no snakes on the entire island of Ireland. It is kind of a mystery as to how it got that way. Some say there were never snakes in Ireland. However, the Druids, who were a mystical pagan sect in Ireland at the time that Patrick came, their symbol was that of a snake. So if there were never snakes in Ireland, one has to wonder, how did they know what a snake was? Maybe they thought it was like a mythical creature, like a dragon, or maybe they had visited England or other places and seen snakes there. So we don't know for sure, but the legend is that he drove the snakes out of Ireland. It could be that that's just symbolic for the fact that he drove pagan influences out of Ireland to make way for Christianity. Now, when the Roman Empire fell in the late 400s, Ireland, since it was not part of the Roman Empire, did not descend into the period of the Dark Ages like the rest of Europe did. And therefore, they were able to preserve a lot of Western civilization and Christian thought during the Middle Ages. The monasteries stayed busy. They wrote illuminated manuscripts. If you ever get a chance to look up images of that, they're really beautiful and depict a lot of really important things in them. And they also sent out monks to go to different countries and spread the gospel and basically re-Christianize all of Europe. Now, later Irish history, there became a split between Northern Ireland or Northeastern Ireland and the rest of the island, specifically when the time of the Reformation came in the 1500s. So Ireland was largely Roman Catholic, but then when the Reformation came, the northern part of the island embraced Protestantism, and that began a very lengthy history of conflict between Catholics and Protestants in Ireland, something that has gone on as recently as even our lifetimes. They have had a very troubled history with the English for centuries and centuries. They were a part of the British Empire for a really long time. They were looked down upon by the English in the same way that a lot of other ethnic minorities are looked down upon in other civilizations. The worst period of Irish-English relations was in the 1650s when a guy named Oliver Cromwell took over England after the English Civil War. And he particularly hated the Irish. He hated all Catholics. He believed the Irish to be ethnically inferior. So he sent troops into Ireland to slaughter as many Irish Catholics as possible. The end figures are over 600,000 Irishmen were killed at the hands of Oliver Cromwell's men. And he even captured tens of thousands of Irishmen and shipped them off to the island of Barbados in the Caribbean to work as slaves alongside the enslaved Africans. This all continued. You have a very troubled history between Ireland and England. You have several attempted revolutions. And in the 1800s, you have a series of really destructive, devastating famines, the greatest of which took place in the 1840s, known as the Great Famine, or more commonly known as the Potato Famine. This is something that killed well over 1 million Irish people. In 1845, you have a plant fungus that infected the entire potato crop on the island, and potatoes had become the staple of the Irish diet ever since the 1500s when it was introduced from the New World. And so with the entire potato crop failing, not only did that harm them for that year, but that also meant they couldn't plant new potatoes for the following year. So this famine lasted for 4 or 5 years, and it led to a lot of death, a lot of malnutrition, and in the end, a lot of emigration. People left Ireland because there was no food there. And the majority of Irish immigrants went to the United States, where, unfortunately, just like in England, they did experience a lot of discrimination. The Irish who came to America in the 1840s were some of the first Catholic immigrants, and America has a very long history of anti-Catholic prejudice. And so the Irish were discriminated against. There were even, you can even look up pictures of famous signs that were in shops that said, help wanted, Irish need not apply. because they were very much kept at the margins of society. But they were known for their hard work. In fact, they helped to build the Transcontinental Railroad, the Hoover Dam, a lot of our national infrastructure. Now, during World War I, getting into the 1900s, Ireland fought for the British Army. At the Battle of the Somme, in particular, the division from Ulster, which is in Northern Ireland, lost tens of thousands of people, and they still remember that every 1st of July in Northern Ireland. And after World War I, there was a series of rebellions. So in 1916, during the war, there was the Easter Rising, where essentially a radical group called Sinn Féin, they declared independence from the British Empire, but it didn't really go anywhere. And then right after World War I, in about 1920, there was a revolution in which the Irish rebelled against the British forces there. And then once they had been semi-successful, there was an Irish Civil War in which Northern Ireland and the rest of the island, or the Irish Republic, split. And Ireland has been split ever since for the past 100 years. Now, during World War II and during the Cold War, the Irish Republic remained neutral, while Northern Ireland remained a part of the United Kingdom and still is today, and fought with the British in both of those conflicts. Ireland remained neutral, and while of course we Americans would have preferred them to help the American side of the World War II and of the Cold War, it's a very important thing that they did not side with the communists, because if they had, then the communists could have put missiles in Ireland, and they're located right between Britain and America, the Soviets' two chief enemies. So the fact that Ireland resisted communism in a way that other anti-British and anti-American countries did not, places like Cuba, it's a testament to their character. Now, more recently, there's a time period called the Troubles from 1969 to 1994, in which a group called the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, carried out bombings and shootings in order to try to unify Northern Ireland with the rest of the Irish Republic. That was the goal, but Northern Ireland wanted to stay with the UK. It's a very complex series of events, but essentially it was a Protestant Catholic thing. It was something where Catholics in Northern Ireland felt discriminated against, and Protestants in the Irish Republic felt discriminated against, and there was a lot of fighting that took place. But thankfully in the 90s there was a ceasefire, and since then the IRA has denounced violence. Now, the Irish have endured a lot. They've endured war, pestilence, famine, enslavement, colonization, you name it, and they have remained strong throughout all of that adversity. It is still a very religious country. They have very large families. One of the phrases we get from them is the phrase Irish twins. So if two siblings were born less than a year apart, they're called Irish twins, based on the stereotype that Irish people have a whole lot of kids and have them back to back to back. The flag is three colors, the tricolor, as they call it, and the green represents Catholicism, the orange represents Protestantism, and then the white in between represents the peace between those two denominations of Christianity, because that's always the hope of Ireland, to have peace between the two. Ireland's also known for a lot of its proverbs. One of my favorites is, "It is in the shelter of each other that the people live," showing how we are each other's shelter. We need each other and protect each other from all that life throws at us. In American culture, you have several mascots being based on the Irish. For example, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, the Boston Celtics, just to name a few. Irish folk music is really popular, river dancing. Literature, people like James Joyce is still widely read. Poetry, people like William Butler Yeats is still widely read. And the Irish, since they emigrated in very large numbers, by the millions during the famines, there are Irish people all over the world, especially in America and England and Australia, but really all over the place, including here in our own country. Now, if you are ever lucky enough to visit Ireland, like I was about 10 years ago, a few things to know about it. It's known as the Emerald Isle. It has some of the most lush, beautiful green landscape you'll ever see. But the reason for that is because it rains there about 300 days a year. So it was raining the whole time I was there, and that's probably what you can expect too. There are a lot of really old castles and cathedrals there, like you see in the bottom picture here. Really beautiful, the kind of stuff you just don't see in America. There are 32 counties in Ireland. Those are like the states here, but it's much smaller since it's a smaller country. I would recommend visiting as many as you can because there are a lot of different types of people in Ireland, a lot of cool things to see. There are plenty of stereotypes about Irish people, that they're all drunks and alcoholics, that they're, rebellious and violent. Then you have the whole leprechaun image there. But in reality, they're some of the nicest people I have ever met, and probably some of the nicest people you'll ever meet as well. So happy Irish Heritage Month, and I hope you get to visit the Emerald